All right, back to the Judicial Branch, the 9 steps. Now, this is in your book, people. Yes? In your book. Okay? Now, the parts I haven't read there, I'm not sure if those are in your book. Are those in your book? Really? Exigent circumstances?
Yeah.
I updated that. Actually had a lawyer that was came in and observed my classes for a few weeks, a couple years ago. This guy named John, and he's going back to become a teacher. He's a lawyer. And I got to turn that on. And John sat in on my government classes and gave me some good stuff about this. Okay, so I threw those in there when John gave me some stuff here. So, did I do a little bit of this yesterday?
You did.
A little bit.
Okay. So, in order for police to do a search, they need a warrant or these sorts of things. Okay, including exigent circumstances where the cops see or witness a crime, and then there's your reasonable suspicion that a crime is taking place, which is similar to probable cause. Okay? So there are some incidents that we just kind of look at with interactions between police and civilians. Okay? An incident to a lawful arrest. If a legal arrest is taking place, they can search the area around the person. Okay? Now, stop and frisk is something that's pretty controversial. And, you know, there's a couple ways to kind of think about stop and frisk. Now, if the cops see somebody walking down the street at random, can they just stop that person and frisk them? No. Now, if they see, say, a bulge sticking out of the back of their shirt, something like that, a suspicious character with a bulge sticking out of their shirt here, okay, do they have the ability to search for a concealed weapon? Well, constitutionally, they're going to have to show that probable cause or reasonable suspicion, okay? Now, in high crime areas, there have been some communities that allow police to do stop and frisk. If you're saying, talk about a particular neighborhood and there's a particular street corner that's notorious for selling drugs, for instance. So if the police were to kind of watch some people and just observe and say, I think this person's selling drugs, and go up and do a stop and frisk. Now, that can be controversial because some people might see it as, what's that called? Profiling, racial profiling, okay? But if you live in that neighborhood and you want that area cleaned up from crime and drugs and so forth, you may want the police to do that sort of thing. So it's kind of a catch-22 there, okay? Police can ask for consent to search. Yeah.
You know how Sheriff Joe from Arizona?
Yeah, Sheriff Joe Pyro.
Yeah, would like do some stopping and frisking. Mm-hmm. Was what he did, was that constitutional?
Without reasonable suspicion, it's not. You know what I mean?
Because he would argue that he had reasonable suspicion.
Right.
But I don't really think he did. But the interesting thing was when he would do it, he was usually right that this person was like an illegal immigrant or doing something illegal. But still, the ways he went about doing it were illegal or questionable.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I know in New York City when Giuliani took over as mayor, if you were to go down to Times Square back in the 1970s and early 80s, I mean, it was not a safe place to go. I was in Times Square this summer, and I felt very safe. You know what I mean? New York City used to be, muggings would happen all the time. A lot of homeless, you had the nudie bars and all that stuff down in Times Square. And Giuliani just said, we're going to clean it up and make it a tourist attraction again. You know what I mean? And so they did use those type of tactics of stop and frisk. They did zoning changes where they zoned certain types of businesses out of those areas, and move the homeless along. No loitering and that sort of thing. Very strict laws, and now it's a safe place to go. So, if you live in those neighborhoods, you might say, hey, we need some strong law enforcement. But on the other hand, you hate to trample on the Constitution and the Bill of Rights at the same time. Yeah.
So has it ever happened, or could it happen where a certain neighborhood or community that's really high crime have some kind of meeting of, the people in the neighborhood, and they agree to have random searches, and then have it be like less of a, it would be harder to find it because the community had agreed to it?
Right. Yeah, anytime, you get lawyers involved, so if somebody was stopped and frisked, and they didn't, they were just, walking to work or walking to school or something, they might have a case. So I think there's this big distrust we have right now that many inner city communities have with the police, and that's sad. And there have been some bad apples in the police departments that have made it, and then the media kind of really helps accelerate that as well. So I think good sheriffs, good mayors will try and have that community policing where neighborhood watches and that sort of thing. That was really big back in the 80s, neighborhood watch, where you had people, trying to clean up their neighborhoods by watching what was going on and calling the police and that sort of thing. I think that is the way to do it, is by having community policing, the same cops in the community all the time. They get to know the people. It's hard work, but with good leadership and people that are willing to do their job well, you can fix that a little bit. Yeah.
Is there any sort of validation process for the claims of reasonable suspicion, or is it just your wording?
Well, cops are trained on this, so they have, if they make an arrest and they stop somebody, and the lawyer says, well, they didn't have a right to stop. There was no reasonable suspicion. So what you're going to have is a case where it's he said, she said type of thing in the court of law. But cops are trained on this because they don't want a bad arrest to result in somebody getting off. You know what I mean? So a bad search could get thrown out in court. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So they have to be able to show reasonable suspicion to a judge. That's got to be proven.
So there's nothing stopping slimy cops from just slimy.
No, other than the dignity of the individual officer. Yeah. We have the justice system that may or may not work in this, in different situations. Hot pursuit. If you're chasing an individual and they go into a building or their home or something like that, they can follow that individual and seize anything found while following them. They can search the vehicle if probable cause and you think they're going to flee. Emergency situations, cops can enter a house if they smell smoke or see smoke. They don't have to have a warrant, obviously. They hear somebody screaming inside. They can enter if they, fear that a crime is going on. Okay, so those emergency situations allow. And then, as you guys probably know, border and airport security. Well, the Fourth Amendment doesn't seem to apply. Okay, if you've ever been on an airplane in your life, yes, yeah.
If the police ask to search you, and you say no, and they say that gives them reasonable cause. Is that thing?
I think if they're asking you, there's probably a good assumption that they don't have probable cause.
So you can just say no.
You can say no. Now, can they go get a canine? Yeah. they can ask, hey, we're going to hold you over for a minute just because we're suspicious here. We're going to bring in a canine.
But if they did that, they would have to have a reasonable cause.
Or suspicion.
Just suspicion?
Right. Right. So if you go back to reasonable suspicion.
Okay. So just
Okay,
for
so-
like with Jake's guy, like he could just, if he's suspicious.
Right.
Suspicion can equal probable cause.
You need either or.
Well, because I think they're trying to when we say suspicion, we mean like I have a light bulb that goes off in my head.
Right.
He looks like he's doing something wrong, or she looks like she's doing
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's
And you're
okay.
calling him
Yes.
off.
But it better, yeah, you don't want to trample on people's rights, but if you're in a high crime area and you have reasonable suspicion, think this person is doing something wrong or carrying a weapon, yeah, you can stop and talk to them and have that conversation, and then if that conversation leads to more suspicion, then you could do a search.
So basically, it's entirely subjective.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, Miranda warnings must be applied if you're going to arrest or detain somebody. No forced or coerced confessions. And guys, there's a lot of gray area here. So they can question you for a lengthy amount of time, okay, and make it somewhat uncomfortable. But they can't, torture you. Yeah.
Could you give a confession and say it was coerced and get it thrown out?
Yeah. Yeah.
Could it get the whole crime thrown out?
Yeah.
Gave one and was just I was coerced.
Well, if you confess and it's coerced confession, then they throw that confession out. The judge doesn't allow it. Okay, so let's say a legal arrest takes place. Okay. Now you have a little bit difference here between federal crimes and other. So grand juries are usually done for federal cases. Now grand juries will usually sit for a lengthy period of time, and they will just bring cases in front of them and say, here's what we have on this individual, this is all the information we have. Do you feel like a crime has been committed? And they will come back with an indictment, okay, for a crime with the grand jury, okay? 23 members determine whether a crime is committed, okay? Just right there. 12 of the 23 have to agree to return an indictment, okay? That's usually in federal cases. You don't always get grand juries in local cases, smaller or municipal courts and city courts tend not to have grand juries. So what you're going to get is you're going to have a DA. You have a district attorney. Okay, they're going to look at what the police bring them and say, yes, a crime has been committed here. Okay, so they're going to arraign you. Okay, which means you bring the accused before a judge to be formally charged. Okay, this is that habeas corpus where you have to be told what you're being charged with. All right, and that goes in front of a judge. Now, by this time, you're probably going to have a lawyer. All right, so that lawyer is going to look at your case and the evidence that the police have against you, and they're going to recommend to you whether you should plead guilty or not guilty, or you might be able to strike a deal, a plea bargain. Okay, so say you're a first offender. Our criminal justice system is very forgiving to first offenders. Okay? Hopefully, people will learn from their mistakes, the first offenders, and won't do it again. Second time around, they're not so friendly. Okay, so let's say, I don't know, you do, you rob, shoplifting. Okay? Let's say you go into Dillard's, okay, and you steal a couple pairs of jeans, okay, worth $175. Okay. All right. So, what's going to happen here? Well, do they want this to go to trial? Okay. It's expensive for the court. It's time consuming for the court. So they may just strike a deal. Say, all right, look, we're going to make you pay restitution, okay, and then a $500 fine, and you're going to do 6 months of probation, okay, and maybe some community service, okay. Or you could plead not guilty, be found guilty because they have camera video of you stealing the jeans, okay. And then you could maybe do some jail time. So what do you want to do? You want to plead guilty or no contest and agree to the probation and so forth? That's generally what's going to happen. That's what your lawyer's going to do for you. Okay, is get you that plea bargain. All right. So a lot of cases are just settled with a plea bargain. Okay. If you're talking about, say, an assault and battery charge, these sorts of things.
Still Joe Rowe later for about 10 minutes or sometime?
Okay.
Oh, boy.
Okay, so if there's an arraignment and say, I don't know, you're going to go to court, you're going to go to trial, okay? Then you'll have a hearing before a judge to determine if they're going to hold you over for trial or give you bail. Or you're going to stay in jail until your trial or you're going to get bail. Okay, so that's just a preliminary hearing to see whether you're going to be held over. So usually you're going to get a chance for bail to get out until your trial takes place. Okay. In some cases where, like capital murder cases where the individual might be a flight risk, where they're very wealthy and they could hop on their private jet and flee the country and never come back. They may want to hold you over and keep you in jail. Okay. Now, the amount of the bail cannot be excessive. The 8th Amendment there, yes? So, what's a typical bail? So, for the shoplifting person, $150 or whatever, bail may be set at $5,000, something like that. How this system works, guys, is you have across the street for most jails a store called a bail bondsman. Okay? And let's say you guys are 25 years old and you don't have any family around you. And so you called the bail bondsman. You don't have $500. So they're going to want 10% down. Okay, so it's $500 bail. 10% is what? $50. So you have to come up with 50. They're going to come up with the other. Okay, and so they hold your bond. That bail is going to make sure that you show up for court. Because if you don't show up for court, Dog the bounty hunter is going to come find you and bring you to court. Okay, so bail bondsmen have bounty hunters that will go out and bring people that don't show up for court. Now let's go a little bit more extreme. So let's say it's an armed robbery case, and this is your second offense, and they post bond at $100,000. Okay, you got to come up with $10,000. Okay, so let's say your mom does a second mortgage on the house to come up with $10,000. And then she's got to put the rest of the house up for collateral with the bail bondsman. He's going to put up the other $90,000. Okay, but your house is collateral. So if you don't show up for court, guess who gets your house? The bail bondsman gets your house. Okay, and then he sends Dog the bounty hunter to find you. So that's what bail does. Okay, now there is some discussion in this country about this whole system and how it affects poor people. Yes?
Where does the bail money go to? Does it just go into government funding or?
So the $10,000, I mean, consider you're supposed to get the money back if you're found not guilty. Okay? But here's the thing, if it's to say that you're going to show up for court. Okay, we're going to let you out, but we're holding this money over your head. Okay, so if you don't show up for court, you just forfeit that money. The bail bondsman's going to get that money. The court's going to get 10%, the bail bondsman's going to get 90%. And this is how they make a living, is by people not showing up for court. Yeah?
So what about if you're found not guilty, how much does the bail bondsman get?
He'll get to keep the 10%. Yeah. Okay. Now, what I was saying, guys, and this is kind of up for debate right now, and I kind of agree with those people that say, this system really is kind of unfair to the poor. Because the wealthy, they don't have to deal with bail bondsmen and so forth. And so it's kind of this system that is stacked against the poor. And I kind of get that. And maybe we need to look at, I don't know what the fix is for that, but I'm open to listening to the discussion about it because it makes it difficult for people that are poor to go through this system here. And it's not near as difficult for those that have money. All right, so, the trial itself. Okay, you've got some amendments in here. Okay, Sixth Amendment guarantees speedy trial. After 120 days, usually the defendant will go free. Seventh Amendment guarantees trial by jury. 12 persons constitute a jury in a criminal case. In a civil case, it's 12, but you only need a majority. In a criminal case, it's got to be 12-0 to find guilty. Okay. Normal, the trial is public. Sixth Amendment. Fifth Amendment, no self-incrimination. Assistance counsel confront witnesses. No double jeopardy. Okay. So the trial takes place, and then you're going to get a verdict. Okay. If you are found not guilty, the defendant goes free. If you are found guilty, the judge, in most cases, will be determining the sentence. Okay? In some cases, guys, state legislatures have said mandatory minimums for certain crimes. Doesn't matter. This is a mandatory because in the past, guys, we had some very liberal judges that gave, people that were like rapists and child rapists ridiculously short jail terms. And so state legislatures pass laws that say if you're convicted of rape, at a minimum, you're going to serve this many years. Okay? Because judges have a lot of leeway. Now, sometimes those mandatory minimums come back and maybe they're too stiff. It's kind of that one size fits all doesn't always work. Okay? Like this 3 strikes and you're out law that we passed back in the 80s in many places, where if you committed 3 felonies, 3 strikes, you went away for life. Okay, well, there's a lot of felonies that you'd be like, what? You're in life for prison for what? Well, it's not a felony. That's a misdemeanor. So you kind of got to question some of those, okay? Now, in cases of murder and rape, sometimes the jury will be determining the sentence. This tends to happen in, every state is different, so it's hard to say for sure, okay? But usually this is the jury that will decide on these types of cases. Now, you can appeal this case, okay, if you lose, if you're not satisfied. Okay, remember, the appeals courts are triers of law, not triers of facts, so the facts have already been determined in the trial. Okay, these 3 judge panels will either affirm or uphold the case, reverse or nullify the results, or remand and send it back for a retrial. Okay, that's generally what those do. Now, this is not in your notes, so you're going to have to write this down. Sorry. I'll tell you what to write down, what's important here. Okay? So, you are going to write this down, this Latin term. Voir dire, voy dire. Okay? If you ever get called for jury duty, you're going to go through this process. Now, unfortunately, I've never been called. I've gotten a notice to contact the court about jury duty, and every time I've gotten that, they said, we don't need you. They said, call at this time on this day, and we'll let you know if we need you. And I called, and they said, we don't need you. I would love to sit on a jury so I could share that experience with my students, but they haven't wanted me yet. Okay? So they're going to bring in 24 people. So this is, say it's a criminal trial, a murder case. They're going to bring in 24 people. And each side is going to be able to get rid of 6 for whatever reason they want. Okay? So there's a science to this, is picking a jury. A lot of times it matters who the defendant is. Okay? So say it's an African American male that's the defendant. That's on trial. Okay? Who are you going to want on that jury, and who are you going to not want on that jury?
You don't want white male.
You're probably not going to want maybe white females or white males. Obviously if you could have an all black jury, that might be good. Okay? Do you want young whites or older whites? Right? So you kind of pick a jury so the defense attorney can dismiss 6 people for whatever reason. Okay? The prosecution can dismiss 6. So you get to 12. Okay? Now, as far as trying to get out of jury duty, that's difficult to do. Okay? If you're a firefighter, a cop, usually they don't let cops on juries. Okay? If you're physically or mentally infirm or not up to the task, if you've served within the last year, okay? But it's got to be compelling hardship. Okay? Now, if you're called for jury duty and you don't want to do it, they're going to ask each juror certain questions. Okay? They're going to try and find out about who you are, how you think. Okay? So, if you want to get off jury duty, say they ask you, who's your favorite author? Well, Ann Coulter's my favorite author. So the defense attorney's going to be like, I don't want this person on my jury. Okay, this person's going to hang my person. They're going to hang my guy. Okay, or I listen to Rush Limbaugh 3 hours a day every day. Okay, that's an easy way to get off a jury. Okay, the defense is not going to want you. Okay. Jurors are sworn in. You have the trial opening statements. This is important. Prosecution always goes first. Defense always gets to go last. The defense always gets the last word. So like in closing arguments, same thing. The prosecution goes first. The defense gets the last word. Okay, we're giving the defendant, okay, innocent until proven guilty, and you're giving them the last word. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So they can defend themselves against things that are said about them. So in a civil case where somebody is suing the other person, you have the plaintiff and the defendant. In a criminal case, it's the prosecution and the defense. Okay? So, similarly, in a civil trial, the plaintiff goes first, the defendant goes last.
Mr. Hebert,
Yeah.
your phone says something on it.
Huh?
Your phone.
Yeah. Low battery.
Already?
Yeah, I thought I plugged in last night, but I guess I didn't. It was at 23% this morning. Brought my charger in. Good to go. All right, so closing arguments. Jury gets instructions from the judge. The jury will retire and deliberate. Have any of you guys ever seen the movie 12 Angry Men? I think there's some teachers that show that. The original or the second one?
The original.
The original's fantastic. Great movie. Rainy Sunday afternoon. Rent that one. 12 Angry Men. It's a classic. Okay. It's just about a jury.
Oh my goodness, that's the first movie you talked about government clock.
No, it's not.
No.
Pretty sure I mentioned one yesterday.
You do it a lot more in history than
Yes, ma'am.
You put a lot more in War and Peace than anything else. Because we watched them too.
Yes. Yes. Okay, the jury will select a four-person. Okay. They'll discuss the evidence, the instructions. A verdict will be reached. The verdict will be read. The jury will discharge. Now, if it's 6-6 or 7-5 or 8-4, that's a hung jury. Okay, the jury could not reach a verdict, guilty or not guilty. You can be tried again. Okay, with a hung jury. If they come up with more evidence, they can charge you again, and you've already been charged. They'll try you again for that crime. If you are found not guilty, Fifth Amendment kicks in, and there's no double jeopardy. Okay, you're free to go. Okay, if you're found guilty, then you go through the sentencing phase, and you go do your time.
If you found guilty after the second trial, can you still make an appeal?
Sorry?
If you found guilty after a second trial, can you still make an appeal?
Yes.
Is there a scenario in which you can't make an appeal?
I don't think so.
So if you're found not guilty, and then even right after you're I actually did it, they can't charge you. That's what happened to O.J. Simpson.
Literally, have you seen that interview where he confesses?
I've tried to stay away from it, but I think I did hear he did confess.
In detail. Okay, what he said was, hypothetically, if blah, 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 and then he laid out exactly what happened.
Yeah. Nothing they can do. Now, he was found guilty in a civil trial for wrongful death, which basically cleaned him out. They took everything, including his Heisman Trophy. And now that, in a civil trial like that, it's just 12 jurors, 7-5, guilty. Okay. Yeah, I've just kind of steered clear of it. I paid attention to the trial when it was going on and that sort of thing, but when they found him innocent, I was like, you gotta be kidding me.
Yeah, no, the tape confession. It was during an interview, and it's just so gross. He's
Yeah.
just laughing about it. It's awful.
Yeah. That's all I got right there. It's over.
Wait, don't turn it off.
I'm not turning it off.
Last lecture?
That's it, people.
Oh no.
Don't go to jail.
Okay.
Texas? Yeah.
Yeah,
We need to learn
why
why
is it
Texas
so
is so
big?
bad about Texas.